Hi again, friends. This is Sharon from Mad Paper Crush. Welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are all well and ready to do some more crafting. Today we're going to be making this kind of organized snippet roll. So you may have seen snippet rolls in the past that kind of have things all over the place, which I also totally love. But I wanted to try something a little bit different. So I used lots of scraps of paper, but I kept them kind of organized. So I really love how this one turned out. And I'm just going to be making just a little bit. You could certainly make this as long as you want. We'll be using lots of scraps of paper and then decorating the top. And I've sewn a lot of this, which is why you see my threads here and there. But I thought this would be fun. If you look at this length, I'm just going to grab a book here. But I thought this would be so much fun as a little journal closure. So you could just wrap this around and make it into a journal closure as well. So I kind of love that idea. But you could also use the snippet roll for making other pieces of ephemera, which a lot of times snippet rolls are used for. So you could cut them to make pockets to put in your journals, or to put on note cards, or to make tags or something like that. So I hope that you'll join me today, and we're going to make this fun snippet roll that's a little bit organized. And if you stick around, I'm going to even show you how to get a freebie full of all of these fun little advertisements around like a stationery catalog. So there's pens, there's typewriters, there's stencil advertisements. I just thought these were so much fun. So if you stick around, I'll tell you how to get that as a freebie for you to make your own snippet roll like this. So come on, let's get started. Okay, the supplies that you're going to need for this project are a piece of scrap fabric. Not too much of this fabric is going to be seen, so it can be anything that you want it to be. The edges may stick out, so if it's, you know, something important how that looks to you, then you want to be sure you pick something, you know, that's appropriate. But if you don't mind, then it doesn't matter. So I just chose this piece of muslin because I'm pretty much going to cover the whole thing. And I did tear the sides, which I love things torn like that. This one is about 2.5 inches wide, but once again, you can do it, you know, however wide that you want to do it. And the length is however long you want your snippet to be. So this one is about 20.5 inches, but you could do, you know, 4 feet if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to do this piece because that was the length of the scrap that I was tearing this from. And that's why I have that piece. So this is going to be our base. Then you're also going to need scraps of paper. Now I chose these are dictionary pages that I actually tore. Now the height of all your pages, you want them to be just about the height of your fabric. So I said my fabric was about 2.5 inches. Each of my pieces of paper are about 2.25 inches because I want my ends to stick out. So that's why I chose that size. So that's the size of each of the pieces, and the width are just variable. I just tore them however, you know, wide I wanted to based on nothing except wanting to have different sizes. And then I also have some scrapbook paper that I'm using here too. Same thing. My height is 2.25 inches. So everything is 2.25 inches, and the width is variable just depending. And I used a variety of different colors that, you know, I wanted to work with in the project that I'm working on. And I have at least enough to fill the length of my piece of fabric here. So that's the scrap papers. This is a great project to use up some of those scraps and get rid of them. And then the other thing that I have for the decoration on top is I created was using a stencil and some acrylic paint, and I just created the butterfly from that. I wanted it to be, just because there's so much going on in these papers, I wanted it to contrast a little bit, and I may add some distressing to this to kind of tone down that green. While I love the green, it's really bright against these, so I may tone that down just a little bit. So I have a couple of those, and I just fussy cut them basically. I didn't go in all the way, and I kept it about 1/8 of an inch from the design itself because I'm going to be stitching these on. So I wanted to have some extra room so I wasn't totally stitching over the butterfly itself. And then also, so those are I just did 3 of those. I figured for, you know, spreading them out on my fabric here, I just kind of figured, you know, having 3 of them around was plenty for here. So if you're doing something longer, you may want more of these, and you could certainly do different, you know, stencil designs and things like that. I like the repetitive, or at least I want to do the repetitive during this one. And then I have some ticket stamps. And so I just took some ticket stamps, and on coffee dyed paper, I just stamped them out. And I left, once again, a little bit of an edge around each one, but I tore them. So I just took my ruler and held it against it and tore them down, because these I'm also going to be using sort of as decoration on top of everything, to kind of give this snippet roll, you know, the look that I'm going for. So those, and your sewing machine. So I'm going to be doing a lot of sewing on this. So if you would like to do it with just glue, I think that you could do that. You'd really have to, you know, make sure things were glued down, to hold them down, and maybe even do some stitching, you know, with a pen or something, some faux stitching, just because I think that adds to the look. But I'm going to be doing stitching with my sewing machine. But that's all the supplies that you're going to need. The only other thing that I don't have out here that I might put on at the end is maybe some buttons, because I think that would look fun on here. But that's it. So you got your scraps, you got your decorations for the top, you got your fabric, you got your sewing machine, and you got some buttons or some decorations for the end. And those are all the supplies that we need. Hold the phone. I decided that instead of using these stamped things that I had made with rubber stamps and with stencils, that I think I'm going to use some of these embellishments. And it's all about things that you might find in a stationer's catalog. So there's a bunch of different ads for typewriters, for pens, for art paste, for blotting paper, all kinds of fun stuff here. So I'm going to use this as my embellishments on top of my snippet roll here. And if you would like this as well, I'm offering it as a freebie. So all you have to do is go to madpapercrush.com/stationer. So STATIONER. And you can get this freebie for yourself. So I will put a link down below so you can get that as well. And then you can use some of these fun embellishments for a snippet roll or for some other project as well. So I hope that you enjoy that. I'm going to have fun with these as well. So let's go ahead and get started making this thing. Okay, I'm just going to talk quickly about tools. So most of my supplies are ready to go, but to make these, obviously I used my scissors, I used my cutter here to create some of these. I used my ruler to tear these tickets out of the paper that I was working on. Obviously I used scissors to fussy cut, plus the stencil that I had used to make that, or a stamp. You could do, you know, if you had a neat stamp, you could certainly just do a stamp for the butterflies or whatever else you want to do there. I'll probably be using a little bit of glue just to tack everything in place before I sew. And then I'm probably going to use some distress ink. So I don't have that out yet, but we're going to probably be using some of that as well. And I think that's all you need. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to get started, I'm just going to take my patterned paper scraps, and I'm going to lay them out on top of my fabric in, you know, a pattern that I want them to look like. So I want to be sure that I have, you know, my colors separated, probably my sizes also kind of separated along the entire thing here. And I'm just doing this not real, you know, I'm just making sure things touch and I put them where I want them, but you don't have to be real, you know, accurate or real specific at this point, because we're just trying to make sure that when we, you know, put everything down where we want it, we have the look that we want. So that's really all I'm doing, is making sure I have the look that I want before I get going here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put everything out. Let's see. So you can just kind of see I'm trying to keep some of my different colors separate as I go along here. And I'm just going to fill the whole thing up. No, I don't want that one there. Maybe this one here. this little guy. And I think I want one more blue on here, so I think I'm gonna put this one here. And I really like these little polka dots, so wait, maybe let me switch this up. So just put them on until you're comfortable with how everything looks. And I think I want this one on the end, but it is a little bit big. Like I don't want to go off the end if I don't have to. So I'll probably cut this one down just to make sure it fits on the edge. So, but I'm going to wait to do that until I have them stuck down. So now that I have everything where I want them, I like, you know, how these colors look together and where everything is at. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my glue stick and just take a little bit of glue, just a little dab of glue right in the middle. We're going to just hold it down so that it stays where we want it to. And this is where you want to be more specific about where everything's going to go. So I'm just going to go down the row and line everything up and tack them down. Now I will say I'm going to put them end to end. So I'm going to, when I put them down on the fabric, I'm going to make sure that their ends are lined up just about as perfect as I can get them. Obviously, it may not be completely perfect, but that's what I'm going for, is having them end to end to be touching each other. I don't want any of the fabric showing through as I go down the line. And the reason I'm doing that is because when I sew, whoa, now what have I done? When I sew, I want to be sure that my sewing machine will hit both edges of the papers that are down. So I'm going to be doing a zigzag stitch along the edge, or I'm sorry, along each seam of these right down here, right down here. I'm going to be doing zigzag stitches all the way on these little seams that I'm creating. So I want to be sure that my papers are lined up, you know, pretty well so that my sewing machine can hit them, and then everything will be in little straight lines here. So I'm just going to keep going, and I will speed this up for you. Okay, almost done. And as you can see, I waited to cut this piece down because I didn't know how much I would need to cut off once I had everything down where I wanted it. And you can see that actually it turned out that this is going to be just perfect on here. So when I had everything straightened and lined up the way that I wanted it, it left me just the perfect amount of space for this last piece. So I don't need to cut it down. I'm just going to add my glue to it, and we are going to have everything on the fabric just the way we wanted it to. So let me just add this last piece in here, and I can see I have my nice frayed edges all around, which I love. And now we have everything ready for the next step. So next step is to do some sewing. Now, I just wanted to mention, we didn't put any of our dictionary pages on yet. And I do have some leftovers here, but these are going to go on after. I wanted to have a nice base to start with, and then we'll start doing some of the top things. So when I'm going to decorate, or I'm sorry, when I'm going to sew this, all I'm going to do is in between each 2 pieces of paper, I'm going to zigzag stitch a one little line here. So I'm just going to, for each one of these, I'm just going to zigzag, zigzag, zigzag down each of my little seams there to start with. And then that's all I'm going to do at this point. So we may do some finished stitching at the end, but right now I just want to get all of these papers stitched down to the fabric. And the other thing that I want to mention is, you know, I tried to just use a little bit of glue, but I'm always heavy-handed with my glue. So I may give this a second just to make sure all the glue is dry, so I'm not putting my needle through wet glue when these go on. So I'm going to go let this dry a little bit, and then I'm going to do my zigzag stitching on each of the papers here, and I will be right back. Okay, my first stitching is all done. So you can see that I've tacked everything down with a zigzag stitch along the entire thing. And I didn't do the end pieces yet. So we'll probably sew them in as part of, you know, finishing the whole thing up. But I love the way this is looking, and I just left my strings long for now. I might leave them, I might cut them off, you know, who knows at this point. Okay, so now the next thing is to start doing some of our decorating on top. And this is where, you know, this is the fun part where you can, you know, pick and choose and do whatever you want here. So what I've done is I picked out a couple of pieces of the dictionary pages, and I'm just going to look around and decide, you know, kind of maybe where I want them to go, you know, maybe in the whole middle of one of these or something like that. I'm just going to kind of pick where I want those to go. And then the same with the top pieces. So I've picked out a number of pieces that I like, and I'm just going to set them around until I get them into a configuration that I like. Now, before I do any tacking or anything for all of these, I am going to add a little distress ink because I kind of just want to use the distress ink on all the pieces to bring everything together. So let me find my vintage photo here. I think that will work good, and I am just going to distress everything, and then I'm going to lay everything out to get it to where I want it to be. Okay, now that I have everything sort of set in place where I want it, we're kind of going to do the same thing that we did before. I'm just going to take each piece off so I know where, I want to keep it, and I'm going to tack glue it down. So I'm just going to, if we start from this side here, move this out of the way, I'm just going to put a little glue, and once again, just kind of put it right where I want it to be on my piece. And I'm just going to go right down the line and do that for all of these pieces. Okay, I love the way this is coming together. So now what I'm going to do is a little more sewing. And I'm just, this time what I'm going to do is any place where I have an advertisement or a little bottle here, I'm going to use a straight stitch. And I'm going to try to go around as best I can on all these pieces just to hold them down. It's not going to be perfect for sure. And I may do like, one inside, maybe one outside, just to kind of give it that, shabby look. Now for the pieces that I have up against the edge here, I'm just probably going to do the inside edges to sew, because I think when I'm all done, I'm going to sew all the way around the outside. So, I certainly could do that. It would just be a double line there, but I think right now what I'm thinking is I'm just going to do the inside edges of these ones that I have up against the edge. For the circle, once again, I may do a couple circles just to kind of give it that kind of fun look. And for the pieces of dictionary pages, I'm just going to sew a straight stitch down each side to hold them down. And then when we do our finishing stitch around the edge, then we'll catch all of these edges in. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and do that, and then I will bring it back and show you what that looks like. Okay, friends, here we go. I did all of the stitching on each of the decorative pieces there. So you can see I did a couple times around the B brand. I have all of the other ones stitched down. I have my dictionary pages stitched down. And the only thing I'm going to do, I really think I like the threads at the ends here, but on any threads that are in the middle, so like for some of the bottles here, like my thread is, I started and finished on the side here. I think I'm going to snip those down so that they are not quite, sticking off there. So I think I just want my little frayed edges to be along the side edges or the ends. So I'm just going to go through, I'm going to snip all those things off. So here was another one that I'm just going to snip off. I'm just going to go through and pick up all these and snip them all off. And once we're done doing that, I wanted to show you too, I just went around the entire edge with a little straight stitch after I had finished doing all of my decorative pieces. So you can see that I caught the ends, the tops of my little strips of paper, and then the side edges, which I hadn't sewn yet, now are sewn down as well. So there's lots of good stitchy goodness on the back as well. And once I cut all of those things off, this is going to be ready for me to use. That's it for this video, friends. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, would you please give me a thumbs up? And if you're not subscribed to my channel, you can hit that little red button and hit the bell, and you'll be notified anytime I have a new video out. I hope that you all have a great week, and I will see you in the next video, friends. Take care. Bye-bye.